listening to the All Metal Mode podcast. Sit back and enjoy the shenanigans of Mike and Sue as they discuss all aspects of metal detecting and everything else treasure related. For those of you who play the How Many Times Will Mike Say Relic Machine game, grab a beverage of your choosing and have responsible fun. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, this is Mike and you're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast. Boy, we're getting off to a little bit of a rough start here. I finally downloaded the new Skype. Like I couldn't hardly even do anything without downloading it. It just kept popping up to downloading it. So I did it this morning hoping I could get any bugs worked out, but I cannot seem to find a way to have two callers on. So, I think tonight, unless something changes, I get it figured out through the show, it's just going to be me and Frank Sanders. Frank Sanders is the guest tonight. He is going to talk about Tesoro mods. From what I hear, I have not used him yet. I have only heard good things. And I hear he's just a great, I've heard a couple things. Very affordable. Very good. Does very good work. So we'll see what happens here tonight. Bear with us. Hopefully we won't have any major issues and we will work it out. Again, I don't think Matt will be joining us tonight. So, you know, hopefully we can have him back next week once we get the bugs worked out. It's been a headache most of the day. Before we get started with Frank, when you get time, check out All Metal Mode on Facebook. Of course, allmetalmode.com. You can find my articles there. And I recently started Macro Cruiser USA. So that's on Facebook. If you get a chance, check it out. Join the group. We small, but some good people. And working out good. Yeah, Matt's just going to listen in tonight for now. Sorry, Matt, if you're listening. I don't know I can't seem to have two callers on at the same time. So let's get started. Frank, I am so excited to have you on the show, buddy.
Mike, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me, my friend.
Good. People that listen to the podcast know I am a huge Tesoro fan. And I just love them. Now I'm a relic hunter and I prefer relic hunting with them. I know that there's people out there who can coin shoot with them and keep up with some of the best. I don't have the ears for that single tone. I just don't. It's not for me. You know, I hear people that do coin shoot with them and gold and jewelry and that kind of stuff. They say that especially, I know I've heard about the Vaquero, and I'm trying to think of what some of the I'm drawing a blank. The UMAX, silver UMAX, that it's really pretty fine tuning, and I know people who can tell the difference between a penny, a dime, a quarter, a gold ring versus a pull tab kind of thing.
For a single tone machine, the Tesoros, with a lot of effort and use, they do have it's really small nuances that, you know, people who have used those for a long time and have good earphones or earbuds, you can tell a difference. And to, you know, somebody who's a new user, they would never know the difference. But yeah, those nuances are slight, but yes, they are there.
Mm-hmm. Hey, before we get into it, and something I didn't bring, you've been metal detecting for a long time, correct?
Yeah, I started right around 89 or 90. My brother-in-law has got me into metal detecting.
Very cool. So you got a lot of experience now. Do you use anything yourself besides the Tesoros?
I do. I work on Tesoros, but my absolute favorite metal detector is the Technetics Mark One, which was designed by my friend George Payne in 1985. It's a large machine, but as far as a target ID circuit and audio tones, it's an amazing machine. But I've used the MindLab Explorer series. Those are some really good deep silver machines. I love those. But something comes along, I'm not brand specific, but yeah, like you mentioned, Tesoros, they are hard to beat. I mean, they're lightweight and they get the job done.
Yeah, exactly. My first experience with a Tesoro, real quick, and I know some of my listeners have heard this. Tesoro sent me one to use for like a month, and this was probably back 6-7 years ago. I'm gonna guess, probably 6-7 years ago. And Frank, I'll be honest with you, when I pulled it out of the box, it reminded me of a kid's toy. And
Right.
It was spring, early spring, and I was field hunting. That's when I lived in Ohio. That's what I did most of. Field sites where old houses were, no modern trash, and man, can those detectors just pick through that iron.
They can. They have a super fast retune, and I think a lot of newer users that get into the hobby, they are looking for a machine that has a VDI target ID display.
Yeah.
And other than the De Leon, I believe in the Cortez, they don't. Unless it's got a VDI target display, they lose interest really, really quick.
Yeah. And which is a shame. I tell anybody that I've relic hunted with, or that I know that relic hunts, I think it's where you're talking sites like in Ohio where I hunted, where there wasn't modern trash or very little, if any. You just can't beat a Tesoro. I mean, for relic hunting like that, they're just amazing, and how fast they recover. And when you don't really need to worry about ID, you want to dig everything that repeats it's not iron. They're just perfect for that. I mean, and really, when you're talking about relic hunting that's all you need. And it only took me a few hunts with the Outlaw before I said, okay, I get it now. It might look like a toy, but I love it, and it gets the job done, and that's what matters. And it'll do it at good depth as well. I mean, they're deep, quick detectors in that iron.
They are. And the Outlaw, I liked it. I really did. And the Outlaw, just for maybe any listeners that are not aware, the Outlaw is actually the exact same thing as the Bandito 2 UMAX. Tesoro uses a lot of their same circuitry from machine to machine, and they took the Bandito 2, put a lot of people, and I didn't care for it, the push button. Mm-hmm. That give a lot of problems for a lot of people. But other than that, Bandito 2, the Outlaw, I love those machines. I had one, eventually sold it, bought something else, but really, really good machine, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. They're just great at that. I want to get in. You and I have talked on the phone a little bit, and I am just really excited to get into what you do. I kind of went over it pre-show with you, but I want to change it up a little bit. Tell us about the Depth Devil. How did that come about? How does it work? How would it help you? That kind of stuff.
The Depth Devil is an audio amplifier, and I got the idea for that back in the 80s. There was a same kind of device called the Depth Master, which was produced in Framingham, Massachusetts. It took a AA battery, and what the Depth Devil does is it takes those weak signals, and especially it's really good if someone has hearing trouble. It takes a weak signal, and sometimes those that are very deep, that are really whispers, and it will amplify those signals so that they are much, much easier to hear. And it also has a limiter in it that surface or closer to surface targets, they don't blow your ears out. So it's an audio amplifier. The 80s, the Depth Master with the wording tried to insinuate that you got more depth. The depth, it does not, and neither does the Depth Devil, but it takes those weaker signals that are down, and especially if you've got hearing trouble that you can pass over, they pop right through because it amplifies that audio as it comes through.
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I would guess that'd be handy for a lot of people. And then I was thinking, a lot of detectors, kind of have that built in, but as you use it, like I found it really handy on the E-Track, but what you had to be careful with was, like on the E-Track, you would also, like as you turned that up, you'd hit iron really good. Iron would start it would be affected by iron, where I would assume, being separate from the detector, you could turn it down in the detector some and run this and get the same effect without digging the iron.
Right.
Yeah.
It's actually worked, and it wasn't something that I was expecting or intended to do, but I've actually sold more of those to Tesoro users because it really pairs well with the Tesoro. A gentleman, Barry Lester, had bought one off of the forums. It's been before I moved to Texas in January. And he loves his, and the other guys that have bought them, the people that bought them, they give reviews, and they really do like them. They really do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've done a little research, a little, and I've heard good. Everything that I hear about you, the Depth Devil, what you're doing is really good things.
That's good.
Good positive feedback about you and what you're doing. So. That's really cool. So real quick, let's take a moment, and what's your website if people want to see what you do, what you're capable of doing now, or what you have on your website? They want to see the Depth Devil and all that.
Yeah, it's www.depthdevil.com, and I'm actually in the process of redesigning the website, changing up, putting videos, more information per se for Tesoro, and what it does. And I'm also going to add video because we just moved here to Texas back in the end of January. We moved in our new home here. It's been a month and a half ago, so we're still kind of getting settled in and finally getting to a point where I can do some other things that I want for the website. But depthdevil.com.
Good deal. One of the things that I'd like to talk about is, and ask you about, the Vaquero. I personally have never ran one, but I find it funny that either people love them or they hate them. And I know one of the things is it's very, the ground balance is very sensitive, correct?
Yes.
Now
the Vaquero, I've actually got one right here in front of me. I'm working on for a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
I've added, and you are correct. People either love them. It's kind of, and they're actually the same as the Vaquero and Cibola. The only difference is the programming and the pick chip. I've used one. I like it, and that's kind of a nuance. Some will stay far, far away from it.
Mm.
But I like the Vaquero because for this gentleman, I added a second discrimination. I did away with the pinpoint button and put an all-metal discrimination toggle switch. And he really liked it. He did. He enjoyed it. But, yeah, I like the Vaquero myself. I really do.
Now, do you offer anything to kind of lock the ground balance in place or help to ground balance it?
When you say lock it in place, what? What I'm starting to do now. Now, when you say lock it in place, how exactly? What do you mean?
Well, I thought I'd seen somewhere, and maybe I'm wrong, where you had modded one and it's got like it clicks like it's real fine, but it stays in place. No.
No, what I am doing though is I just ordered. I'm installing O-rings for the ground balance, and I'm going to actually be using any control O-rings on any control, because the O-rings, once you set that with an O-ring, it gives a little resistance to where if you set it down, kind of brush up against your leg or something, it's not as easy to move the control knob. So yeah, I'm putting some O-rings, and that'll actually, when you turn it to where you want it, it kind of sets there, and it takes a lot more effort to actually turn the ground balance knob.
I gotcha. That's a good idea. Now, why did they make the Vaquero so sensitive? I'm guessing it's more for mineralized ground.
Well, the Vaquero, now the one that is considered the most sensitive from, and this is going to be different from person to person, is the Tejon, but the Vaquero, I have several friends who have those, and they like them for, like you, relic hunting. Mm-hmm. And the guys that have them that like it, for that, they say the sensitivity, they say they would not have anything else. And so it's, user specific. But yeah, those guys, my friends that have the Vaquero, they love them, and several of them are relic hunters, and they say it's the best relic hunting machine they've ever had.
Really? I gotcha. That's interesting. Now, what are some of your most common mods you're doing? People are requesting.
The Tesoros that don't have ground balance on the outside, it's an internal ground balance. Bring that out to the front. Add a second discrimination. Do a sensitivity boost. I can add a second tone, and it's not at this time. It's only a selectable. You can either have a low or high tone, but in the future, it's going to be coming where you can either have two tones, low for ferrous and high for non-ferrous. And I'm actually working on a multi-tone module for the Tesoros. It's being a pain in the butt that will give you different tones for different targets, similar to other metal detectors. That's actually right now, I've got it for the Vaquero and the Cibola. I've just about got that squared out. Like I say, it's being a pain in the butt, but I'm going to try to move that over to other Tesoros. Mm-hmm. What else? Yeah, the ground balance, sensitivity, second discrimination. I've got a list of other things that I'm looking at. For example, the retune speed. I'm thinking about adding a toggle to where the retune speed can be adjusted. That has to do with changing some electrolytic capacitors. That actually gives you a little more depth. You have to go with a slower sweep speed, but I'm going to offer that. So just basic things. The mainly is the ground balance and sensitivity, things like that are preset on the board. Bringing those to the front and the control.
I don't know if it's a possibility or what I'd have to do. I would love to send you my Outlaw to test for the two different tones and adding a like we talked about a volume knob for the low tone for the iron.
Yes, that's I've got, as I get more time here and get more time to look at things. I would like the iron. I think we had discussed an iron silence. Because I've got that actually on a Fisher CZ6 that I've got, where you can knock out the iron tones altogether. And I think that's something that I would like, preferably because if I'm going somewhere, you can actually, leave iron. You can accept everything, but you don't hear the iron.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would like a volume knob if possible, so I can still hear it, but at a lower volume, or turn it all the way off. would buy. But when you're out in a field in the thick of the iron, you still want to hear it to know how much iron you're in. Those old house sites in Ohio that I like to hunt, there's a lot of iron, but it's also easy to get out of that iron and off the site if you can't hear what's going on in the ground. If that makes
Right,
sense.
it is.
But I would think that the hard part would be, and maybe I'm wrong, would be getting two separate tones. I wouldn't think putting a volume knob on the one would be all that difficult, but maybe I'm wrong.
Separating the two tones is actually easier because it'll take a couple extra components to actually filter out which signal is just iron as it comes through. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, the two tones is easier. I mean, there's still some steps to it, but yeah, this iron silencing or volume control for the iron would be a bit more daunting, but it can be done.
Okay. I'm so excited. I'm telling you, when I found the Impact and then the multi-cruiser, they replaced my Outlaw because
right.
I can turn the iron volume down. I hate having to listen to iron, where on the Tesoros you've got to discriminate iron out because you've got that one tone when you're in that heavy iron, and you get a lot of clipped signals. You know when you're in the heavy iron, it does slow it down some. They still work good, but you get a lot of falsing, a lot of little chirps here and there that you got to take time to investigate. And I found with the Impact and the multi-cruiser, I could get through that stuff quicker. I could turn it way down to where the iron's just a whisper, and I could still run the detector wide open. So
right, that's two machines that I haven't used yet that I would like to when I get a chance. Is the Impact and Cruiser. There's a lot of really, really good machines that are coming from overseas.
Yeah.
That are really giving the manufacturers here in the United States a run for the money. And hopefully, the manufacturers like Tesoro Whites and Fisher First Texas Products, hopefully they can come out, and especially Tesoro, because there's a lot of rumors going around about Tesoro. They don't sound good at all, but we're going to keep, a heads up, and hopefully they can come out with something really, really nice. They were going to come out with a machine called the Cazador. I think it was about 2014. That never materialized, and they're actually one of their longtime employees, Rusty Henry, just retired.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully we're going to keep up. Like I say, hopefully Tesoro can get the ball rolling and come out with something new, because they've been around for a long time and they've got some really good machines, and I want to see them keep that up.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Along with that, I would say that I think, if you could get people, all these relic hunters, I think relic hunting's bigger now than it probably has ever been. There's a lot of people hunting these fields and stuff, and if you could make some of these people understand these Tesoros aren't out of date for that.
No.
They're
not. No, you're correct.
Right, and they just, I don't know of another detector that you can get for $550 with 3 coils and 3 shafts that's going to work in the iron like that. There's nothing out there. But yet you can take a $160 compadre and work in that iron better than a lot of these $500,000 detectors. I think there's something to be said about analog technology in iron.
It is, and the compadre was and is still a heck of a machine when it came out. I was amazed, to come out with a 5 3/4 inch coil. And I was, when it came out, I'm like, there's no push button for pinpointing, but come to find out, you don't need it.
No.
The compadre is just a good machine. It really is. And like as we had discussed, I think the big thing is newer generation users, they don't want an analog machine. A lot of them that are coming in, especially younger users, they want digital, something they can see, which, that's fine, but you can't rely on that too much.
No, I agree. And it's, I've been at this probably roughly 23 years, and it was hard for me, going back 20 some years, they've been digital. And we've had depth gauges and everything else. So it even took me a while. It was working in that heavy iron and watching how these Tesoros handle that heavy iron that I was sold. I'm like, oh, I get it now. I understand,
Right.
because I was one of those people that didn't take Tesoro serious at all. And then when I got it in my hand and took it out of the box, I'm like, oh my God, this little tiny control housing and these old looking, it looks like a toy from the 70s. It really does. And if you can get over the looks, and for me, and I think most of us, it's all about going out and finding stuff. And I think it's really hard to beat a Tesoro relic hunting. I think if you got the patience to learn it, or you can hear them little nuances, I think
Right.
You can do really good with them. One of my the first time I seen a Tesoro in action was the compadre, and I met a friend of mine who lived roughly 2.5 hours away. We met halfway at a farm that had, I believe, three old house sites. They were long gone. It was all farm field.
Right.
And we met up with another guy and his wife, and my friend who was hunting with another detector, he showed her the compadre, and he said, listen for it to double beep each time you swing over something, and dig it.
Right.
And I wanted to see. I kind of walked close and kept an eye. That thing ran almost silent while I was using the E-track in two-tone. And that E-track will drive you crazy with iron. Here, listening to all that iron. And she was running almost silent, and then she hit a button. Then she hit another flat button. Then she hit an Indian. And that blew me away that $160 detector could work, find those targets in that, that heavy iron and almost run quiet. Iron notched
Absolutely.
out. Yeah.
And with a 4-inch coil or a 5 3/4 inch coil, the Tesoro to me is probably one of the top 3 detectors in parks. I love it in a park. I haven't used every metal detector, of course, but I would stay with a Tesoro in a park for coin and jewelry hunting. And one of my favorites, and I'm not sure a lot of users may have never seen one, is a Tesoro Pantera. They were produced in 1990, I think for 2 years, and the Pantera has what's called a tone break. And you can set that, for example, it's 2 tones, but you can adjust that, for example, on a pull tab. You can adjust that to where when you hit a pull tab, you don't get a low or high tone, but you get both. It's kind of a warble sound.
Oh, okay.
And the Pantera is one, and you don't see them very, very seldom ever for sale because they are just really good machines.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that. Mark in the chat, Mark Hoover's asking, can you ask Frank what he thinks about the Mojave with the high-low switch and what can be done to improve it?
I've had one gentleman that wanted to send me a Mojave. Now, the high-low switch is for the mineralization in the ground. That can actually be worked on and adjusted. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to pull that up.
Okay.
Because what that is, that's actually a preset, it's kind of a preset ground balance, and it's what it is internally. It's resistors. Mm-hmm. That can actually be taken and done away with, and actually a ground balance control put back in its place. So you could actually, instead of having a preset, the high-low switch can be taken out and actually have a control knob and have manual ground balance in place, which is much, much better because, anytime you have a preset ground balance,
right,
you can lose several inches depending on where you are, and it really does hurt the performance. But yeah, that high-low switch can be taken out if the user wants and replaced with a control and manual ground balance, just like a regular detector.
Nice. That's awesome. Guys, we aren't going to be taking calls tonight because of Skype issues. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat and we will ask Frank while we've got him. Again, I apologize for all the issues, but I think we're going good now. I'm sorry we don't have Matt with us and nobody can call in tonight, but we'll figure it out. We'll get it right. What other questions did I have? I'm looking now. I got sidetracked. I'm trying to watch the chat and everything. One of the questions that you said you can add a finer sensitivity, I believe. Or how did you word that?
The sensitivity, it's actually a sensitivity boost.
Okay.
And what I was doing previously, I'm changing things up, is I was actually putting it was a toggle switch that, depending on where you are, if you've got really light soil like we do here, particularly where I am here in Texas, I run what is called into the noise. I don't know if some of the listeners have ever heard. That's a term where you turn the sensitivity up really, really high and you've got a lot of chatter. But to a point, you can still hear the target. But what the sensitivity toggle is now going to be replaced with a sensitivity boost by an actual control. And the reason I'm doing that, because let's say, a gentleman gets one, goes out, metal detects, and he turns it on, the sensitivity boost for his particular area, it may be too much. So with the control, he can adjust exactly how much sensitivity boost he has. And what this does, when you turn your sensitivity, if you have the area to do that, you turn the sensitivity way up, then you turn on the sensitivity boost. It's kind of like an overdrive for the sensitivity. But now it's going to be a control, an adjustable control instead of just a toggle.
That's great. That's great to hear. Sounds like you got a lot of things in the works.
I've got I'm write down all kind of stuff on paper, and it's one of those things that I wish I had more time to do, because I'm scatterbrained some of the times. My wife and I, we will be driving, and out of nowhere I'll say, well, I think I can do this, and my wife will be like, we're not even talking about metal detectors. I'm like, sorry, honey, sorry.
Right. That's too funny. Do you stay pretty busy?
I have been here lately, and not only with metal detectors, but like I say, we moved into the new house. I moved all of my equipment into a room, got all of that set up. But yeah, I've stayed fairly busy. Things are starting to pick up, and hopefully they continue to do so, because I love. I've been in electronics for many, many years and metal detected, and if I can do this until I drop over, which hopefully is none too soon,
right?
I would enjoy that.
Good. Well, don't stay so busy you can't do the mods on mine. You gotta get those done at.
Oh, absolutely. The mods are always. I will definitely take care of it. I actually got to go out metal detecting the other day for the first time in a while, and here in San Angelo, Texas, I moved from North Carolina, and here in Texas, with the history, is just like a metal detector's dream. There's history and treasure tales everywhere, which I try not to put too much emphasis on treasure tales, using common sense. But man, there's a lot of history here. the Fort Concho, and it's an active. It's a beautiful site. If people get a chance to look it up, obviously there's no metal detecting, but man, it would sure really be nice to do so. But there's an empty field across from the fort that the city owns. It used to be a farmer's market, and I actually metal detect over there because 1800s. I'm quite sure that soldiers were there. They may have used it as an ammunition dump. There may be bullets. Who knows?
Right. They could probably just full of history. I'm not finding the history up here where I'm at. Like, I mean, I'm sure I know that there's history here, but I'm not finding a lot to go on, I guess I should say, here in Texas.
The history of what?
Where I'm at here in Texas.
Ah.
Yeah, I'm not finding.
I don't. Now, how far are you away from San Angelo, roughly?
That I'm not sure. I'm pretty new to Texas myself. I'm about an hour south of Fort Worth.
Okay, my daughter and her husband and our grandkids live in Dallas, so that's roughly 4.5 hours from here. So you're about 3.5 hours away.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's not that there's not history. When I say, people kind of, I know there's history here. It's very vague. They didn't write down the history like they did back east. They didn't record it, and there's so much that it's a little bit rougher than what I'm used to in Ohio. Hey, Frank, we've got some questions. I want to get caught up here because as we're talking, questions are coming in. Greg Weems asked, what other mods, I'm guessing what mods and what all mods are being done to the Tejon?
The Tejon, I had actually adjusted the sensitivity. I just did one for a gentleman not long ago. Redid his ground balance, the sensitivity boost for his. What else? Give me a second. Let me pull up because I've got a list here on the computer, and I should have had that pulled up, but I did not.
Oh, that's all right.
Now, the Tejon is a machine I've never had. I've not used one.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point I will.
Right.
Because I've heard a lot of good things about the Tejon. All right. That's right. That's got the dual disc. The sensitivity, and on the Tejon I'm looking, and we'll see how this goes. On the dual disc on that, I'm looking at making this one of those, and like I say, this is going to be, it'll probably be a couple of months. But the disc, I'm looking at making what's called a split range discrimination, which will be, for example, your primary disc would go from iron to nickel, and then the secondary disc would cover from just above nickel to, let's say, silver.
Oh, nice.
That'll take a little work, but yeah, the Tejon, other than the sensitivity boost, and it's got the VCO, at this point, there's not a whole lot. I've got some paperwork, I've got schematics, so I can take a look. But yeah, refining the sensitivity, and it's gonna. The Tejon, I've only worked on just a few of those, but as I do more, I'll probably come across one. What I will do, the gentleman who asked, in the next week, as I do more on my website, I will have, for each Tesoro, I'll have the what modifications can and cannot be done to that.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
that will help out, because that's I really need it, because I get a lot of emails asking what can be done to this machine or that machine, and try to have all of that on the website.
That's very cool. Yeah, that would be nice to be able to see what can be done. That might help people decide what they might want to purchase.
It is,
well.
yes, it will.
Yeah. for sure. Now, Gavin McGregor, he wants to know, have you heard of the Tesoro Dingo? It's made specifically for the Australian market. He'd like to know what features it has.
I have, and I've pulled that up because I had seen where he posted that.
Oh, okay.
I'll pull it up and see what it has. That's got the housing similar to the some of the older Tesoros, the Pantera. The pictures are not the best. Ground balance. It's got ground balance, retune, discrimination, sensitivity, and I can't really see the picture that well. Because the Dingo is something I've actually, I've never done a lot, investigated much. I don't even know if I have a schematic for that one. But what I will do is, because I've got two machines of Gavin's. I have a Conquistador and a Compadre that, on the Compadre, I'm making some new decals. I'll get him some information, and Gavin, if you are listening, I'll get you some information on the Dingo, because I've got folders full of all kinds of information I'll go through to find something, and I'll let you know exactly what it has and if anything can be done to it.
Oh, very nice. That'll be nice. How old of Tesoros can you work on, or do you work on?
Pretty much all of them. Now, the De Leon and the Cortez having the digital inside, digital not as much, but pretty much any Tesoro I've got schematics that go all the way back to the Royal Saber, the Golden Saber. So, pretty much any of them, really.
Oh, that's nice. Greg Weems said, join Treasure by Tesoro Facebook page, and you can advertise and share as much info about your work and stuff. Oh, you're in the chat too. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting.
I do see it. Oh, no problem. Thanks, Greg. I really appreciate it, and I'll absolutely do that.
Yeah, good deal. Get you some business. Don't get too busy now. I need that dual volume that volume control for that low side. Don't you all make him too busy now. Don't do it.
For you having me on your show, I will absolutely take care of you, just like Raymond. He advertised me on his site at Tesoro Diggers, and Raymond Ingram is a really, really nice fellow. Yeah, and I thank him as well. I don't know if he's listening or not, but if you are, Raymond, thank you very much.
I talked to him a little bit in chat this morning. I'm sure he's tuning in, I would guess.
I know he had I think he said he had a kidney stone that he, last week, that he had to go to the emergency room. So hopefully he's feeling a heck of a lot better. Kidney stones are no joke.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I did not know that. I'm looking to see what else we have in chat. If anybody has any more questions, keep them coming. How far do you think? How far out do you think you are before I can send my Tesoro in for that, my Outlaw?
Whenever you get it, go ahead, because I'm not right now. I'm finishing up the decals for Gavin's machines, and I'm getting ready to send the Vaquero back. So right now is kind of a lax time. It's things have slowed down a bit, but hopefully they'll pick back up. So go ahead, and whenever you get it, just let me know.
Great.
You can send that in, and I'll take care of it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I would be really excited, and I could do an article about it and stuff, and talk about it, and hopefully drum you up some more business. I'm really looking forward to the website where you're saying what you can do to each model, because that'll really help people decide, if they're wanting to buy a brand new detector or something, it'll help them, I would assume, lean to what works best for them or what mods they want done to, which detector they want to buy according to what mods you do.
Right.
That's a
It
great
will,
idea.
and I work on that a little bit at a time because my website I went through GoDaddy, which I have no quarrels with it. It's done a really good job. That's the first time I had ever designed, so to speak, a website. But it takes a bit of time to go in there and take everything out. But now that I've got some more time. My wife is actually a registered nurse, and so we're going to see how that's going to work out. She is going to be a travel nurse starting probably in September, and so she'll be gone. It will just be myself here, my lab, 10-year-old lab, and 2 cats. So we'll see. Well, we will see how that works. And my wife told me, she said, you need to make that change. And I told her, I said, you bet you, honey, no problem.
Gavin's got another question, and I'm pretty sure that they make quite a few double D coils, if I'm not mistaken. Tesoro does.
They've got, I believe, the wide, because it's so many. I think of the wide scan. But yeah, they do. And I will tell you a very good site if you ever want to see not only Tesoro's website, Tesoro.com, but Kelly Code Detectors on their site. They list not only the coils that are manufactured by Tesoro, but also third-party coils, NEL, NEL coils. So yes, they do. I'm not sure, exactly the sizes. Double D's now for relic hunting, like you've seen, especially for depth. Double D's are great, but I like a good concentric coil.
Same here. When I'm relic hunting, they say you get that. This is the conclusion I've come to. People, they say that a double D works better in trash. And that's what I've always heard. But just, I don't know, in the last 6 months or so, because I've kind of been perplexed over that, because I prefer a concentric in the iron. Well, iron isn't exactly trash, and I think, personally, a concentric works better in the iron.
It does and always will. It does, absolutely, and I'll tell you why. A double D coil, the electromagnetic field is down the center of the coil. Mm-hmm. Okay. On a concentric, the electromagnetic field coming out of it, you can kind of, in a way, you can look at it as an ice cream cone. The further down that signal goes, of the electromagnetic field, it tapers down to a point. So, in another tidbit, I don't know if you ever have a concentric and you're in really, really heavy trash, raise your coil up off the ground 1-2 inches, and what that does, that actually brings that smaller center of the field up a little bit and can help get you in between trash. But yeah, the concentric coil in trash is the only way to go.
Jersey Digmore is asking, he might have missed the beginning of the show or something. That is something Frank is working on. He's working on multi-tone, and I believe you've got that down for a couple detectors, a couple models already, correct?
I actually designed that to start with for the Cibola and the Vaquero, but I'll branch that out to other Tesoros as well. Now, a two-tones, I can do pretty much a two-tone, low for the ferrous and a high for non-ferrous. But yeah, the multi-tone is where it's at, and I'm hoping to have that, because I've actually got a small module that's made, but it's been a pain in the butt. Initially, I had a hum. I changed the op amp in it. and now the hum is gone, but it's just a little inconsistent, and so I'm trying to get that worked out. Once I do, we'll be good to go.
That is awesome. There you go, Jersey. Yeah, he's doing big things. Paul wants to know what Tesoro has the best discrimination.
Best discrimination. I'm gonna have to go with actually, and this is just me, but I like the and I had worked on one for Paul. It's the Outlaw, and also I love the discrimination on the Outlaw, and also the Pantera. Now the older Tesoro, the Royal Saber and the Golden Saber, they had really good discrimination. But yeah, I like personally the Outlaw and the Pantera. That's just me. So those two come to mind, and that's going to vary. I'm sure there's a lot of Tesoro users that would say that's incorrect, but for me, that's the ones I like. I had a lot of success with the Outlaw and also the Pantera.
I believe the Silver UMAX is really good as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think I've heard some stuff about that, but I don't really hunt with Tesoros like that, so I don't know. Although I have park hunted a little bit with the Outlaw, and it's pretty neat to see what they're capable
the
of.
The Outlaw is a heck of a machine. It really is with the Bandito too, the Outlaw. But yeah, they are. They're really, really good machines. And I purchased mine. It was 2 years ago when we had actually came to visit family here in Texas. I bought it out of Craigslist.
Cool.
Went and bought it from a gentleman in Sherman, Texas. And the day I got it, it started raining, so I had to wait 2 days. But afterwards, I loved it. I really did.
Yeah, they're good detectors. Charles had a couple questions for you. Let me find them.
What's the hot rod Tesoro in stock configuration? My favorite Tesoro to modify. The Compadre, and actually any of the Tesoros that don't already have a lot of controls, because it's the reason being, when you open the Tesoro, it's a glob of wires. There is very, very little room inside, and a lot of those wires are prone to break. Which, thank goodness, I've got schematics, and from working on them, I can get them back. But I like the Compadre, which the Compadre, you've got the ground balance and sensitivity, and I can add a secondary disc to that, branching off of the first one. But yeah, the Silver UMAX. So yeah, any of those that don't already have a lot of controls on them, and that's mainly because there's a lot more room. What's the hot rod Tesoro? So I'm assuming, Charles, you're asking what's the hot rod Tesoro. So by that you mean which one has pretty much the most power, or I would have to say, and that's even though I've never used one, and that's just from talking to a lot of folks who have and watching videos, of course, is the Tejon. But that's going to depend where you are. But yeah, the Tejon is considered really probably the strongest, most powerful Tesoro as far as depth out there, and that depends on the coil that you can use. But yeah, the Tejon is probably the top contender.
Yeah, I would say so. It's a pretty hot detector. I had one. I liked it. I liked it a lot, and I would actually like to have another one back, but at the time I didn't have anything with a VDI, and I needed something with a VDI, so I kept my Outlaw and got rid of the Tejon. But I will have another Tejon again. It's really hot, but what I was surprised with, I'm really surprised at the depth with the Outlaw. I know my listeners have heard this, and I'll try to make quick. I'll never forget finding a little piece of wadded up copper, probably half the size of a half dime and half as thick, if that, about 8 inches down in a field with iron around it. And when I dug it, I thought, there's no way, there's got to be something else, something. And there wasn't. That was it. And I'm like, wow, that's impressive, on that little tiny bullet.
Absolutely. I had found when I had my Outlaw several items that were really, really small that I was impressed with the depth. And it was a surprise that it had done really, really good.
Yeah, they're deep. They're not just fast in that iron. They're deep. Oh, I know another question I had for you.
Sure.
Let's say I've got an old Tesoro, or I've got something out of warranty. I bought it used. Do you do any repairs?
I do. I'm actually, and it's funny you mentioned that. I'm working on it's a Cutlass 2 that had quit working for Charles Deshler. And so I do, and that takes a lot of times, depending on, and Charles will know that, more time than just a modification, because I'm trying to, now that we've been here, I'm trying to get to where modifications, when you send one in, will be in and out, if it's just a modification, in and out in about 3 to 4 days. The guys that have been patient, Gavin McGregor and Charles, I appreciate it. You guys have been great. But yes.
That's awesome. That's great. I'm really excited. I think you're doing a lot, and really, heck, you could be the boost that Tesoro needs with some of these mods. They're great detectors, but like I said, my Outlaw has gone to second place because of it's gone to second place because it's I can't run it and listen to iron, and it slows it down a little bit. You get a lot of chirps and stuff, and it's like, wow, if Tesoro could put the two tones and limit the tone for the iron, you can turn it down. I mean, if you can do that, that's going to go back to number one for me. Nothing works.
I want to have, and I haven't tried to put it on there yet. I've got, I don't know if you are familiar, it's called a development board, Arduino. Arduinos they're called development boards, and they're little circuit boards. They're really amazing. You can do literally anything with them, and I have one. That's a VDI that will work on pretty much any metal detector, including the Tesoro. I haven't hooked it up to the Tesoro yet because I want to be able to, it uses a standard 16:2 LCD, which is bigger. I want something to be able to set on the top of the Tesoro housing that looks aesthetically good. That up top would not. It's quite a bit wider. Right now, the only thing is, which is not a big deal, if you change your ground balance, your discrimination, you would have to readjust the VDI. But I'm hoping by, we'll say Christmas, or maybe a little after, I'll have a VDI module that will work. It will work definitely with any of the Tesoros. And it's really, really accurate, and it works off of the Arduino board. So it's like I say, a lot of stuff. I get scatterbrained sometimes, and I just, I'll get on one thing, but it's exciting because I like to do it. And Tesoros, they're fun to work on, even though they are small and don't have a lot of room inside. The Tesoros are, like you say, they're awesome machines.
Yeah, yeah. I agree, and I love that you're modding them and what you're doing, and very impressive. And I think, I think if guys like us could get the word out to people, you know, um, about Tesoros and then what you can do to them, I think that would be huge. Frank, I apologize up and down. I've got to do this real quick though. Gary Heckman in the chat, I took your calls all the time for like a year until I lost my number. Don't even. I sold you a brand new detector. I would never sell anybody a used detector as new. And I took calls from you 2, 3 times, 4 times a week. How dare you? Oh my God, man. I am so sorry. Just some
Don't worry
people,
about it, man.
man.
That's okay.
Yeah, I just, some people, some people. But the Tesoros are just amazing. And like I said, if we got the word out, I don't understand. Like you nailed it. A lot of these people, they're new, they're young, they want VDIs and stuff, and I get that, but why not use what's going to work? And I think in a lot of cases, a Tesoro will work better for cheaper.
It is, and a lot of that goes along with some of the macros and the Noctas. The screens, the VDI it's catchy, and it's kind of like buying a car. When people go out to buy a car, you want something that looks sharp, that you look good in. And, if you've got 2 metal detectors, even though, the Tesoro can probably do as well or better than some of the other ones out there, I'm sure they can. You've got one that's got a really fancy looking digital screen with all kinds of wink lights and bells, as they're called. That really gets their attention right up and down, and there's a lot of people that will go out and spend, a lot, $800, maybe $1,000 on a new metal detector and think that it's going to do everything but dig for them.
Right.
And after a couple of weeks, and they say, "Well, something's wrong with it. I've dug every signal that said it was a gold ring, and it's a bunch of foil and pull tabs." They come back, and metal detecting is one of those things, and I'm sure you and everybody that's listening that's been in it for a little while, it takes patience. And it's there'll be days, and I've had them, and I'm sure everybody else has. You will go and you won't find hardly anything at all except the junk in the ground, but you stay with it, and it will really come back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And good times. Is there anything you want to add or talk about or anything? I think I asked everything. Let me double check. I think we've covered everything that I wanted to cover. If you're in the chat and you got questions, please ask away.
Yeah, I'll look for those that had questions, especially I think a gentleman had the question about the Tejon. There's some things that I can do, and a lot of, like I say, I'm scatterbrained. I'll put all of that on the website and have for each particular model what can be done, and how much each particular modification is. The Cibola and the Vaquero, I haven't, I don't know if I told you, I'm doing a modification for those that take them from 14 kilohertz to, you can either choose 14 or 18 kilohertz.
Oh, that's very cool.
and the 18 kilohertz does somewhat better, in park, especially for gold and smaller objects. So trying to get in a kind of in a groove the way I want to do things. I try to when I'm working on a machine, I try not to get too scatterbrained and say, well, I could have done this, and then before I'm know it, I've already forgot where I was at. But there's I'm excited. I've got a lot of stuff that I want to do, and I just have to put that in order of necessity. But 14, 18 kilohertz switch for the Cibola and the Vaquero. They actually do that, believe it or not. There is a company in Europe called Pintechnic that is a Tesoro dealer over there. They have, the names are different. They have the Laser, the Trident, and they're authorized to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been around for quite a while. And Pintechnic is a good group. But I'll have more information on the website, what can be done for each model, and videos. I finally got a tripod for my camera, and want to make some videos of a before and after, so that people can see the differences that it makes. But most, and also pretty much any Tesoro that you have that has only one discrimination, I can add a secondary discrimination control, so they can all be made similar to a Tejon, with a toggle switch to choose between one or the other. And that's kind of like a notch, but you can add the second discrimination. There's just Tesoros are fun to work on. I wish they just had a bit more room on the inside.
Yeah. Now, when you were talking about that, have you thought about having a housing made?
I at some point I did, but that's I don't know if that would be viable. I mean, it's possible, but there's a bit of not only money. That was one of the biggest things with. I don't know if you heard of Troy metal detectors.
Yep.
That was one of the things that Troy Galloway. It was a big cost. To have just the housings produced. I had thought about it, and at some point, further down the line, if I could find something that's aesthetically pleasing, and that's the main thing. I mean, I don't. Before I started having these decals made, I was using the little labelers that you can buy. Mm-hmm. And they do a lot better than the ones I had in school back in the 70s, of course. But I wasn't happy with the labels, even though they looked okay. Because I want, when I take a metal detector, return it, I want it to look really, really good, so that the user is, they're like, wow.
I've heard, I don't even know where I heard that, but somebody told me that you did that and made some really nice graphics and stuff. Let me ask you this real quick. Do you, by any chance, have an old Tesoro housing laying around?
Yes, I do.
Get me pictures and stuff of it. Let me talk to, I've got two guys that I can talk to if you would be interested in getting housings made.
Right.
One is a mold maker, a great friend of mine, known him since high school, and another one is they do all plastic injection molding.
Right.
I'm very, very close to both of them.
All right.
If you're interested, if it's something you're interested in.
Absolutely, to take a look at. That's one of the biggest constraints, especially like with 10-turn ground or 10-turn potentiometers. Mm-hmm. You can't a lot of depending on how many controls it already has and what you're wanting to add, there's not enough room. And a 10 turn, I like using 10 turns. It gives the user a lot more adjustability. But yeah, you have to be. It's actually got to the point on some of those when I do modifications and actually add toggle switches that I end up having to pretty much measure exactly, because it's not necessarily with a trim pot, but also a toggle switch that there may be a capacitor, there may be a resistor, or anything that when you think it's going to work, you try to close the top. And I did that on one of mine that I had my personal unit, and it wouldn't close because it was actually pushing against a capacitor. And I kind of learned a lesson. Don't just guess. I have to end up measuring sometimes. So yeah, I'm always open for housings.
Get me pictures, measurements, and an idea of what you'd want to do, and let me see what I can do. People that I know very well that might be something we could get done, because that's
okay, sure.
that's what I would imagine would be the hard part, is getting everything stuffed in. I mean, now does the size of the control housing sometimes limit you to how much and what you can do?
It does. I mean, there's only so much that can be done as far as the add-ons. I haven't really had a problem yet, but like if you can't put. If I wanted to use it, if I had wanted to put a ground balance and another, let's say a secondary discrimination on one, 2 10-turn trim pots, not going to happen.
Right.
Unless I'm lucky. So there is a constraint. I mean, like I say, I like to use 10 turns, but those 10 turns are big. The 3 3/4 turn trim pots that they have, those are slimline, but those are super expensive. They're about $13 a piece. But yeah, that's what you got to watch out for. And if anybody ever takes their front off of their Tesoro for whatever reason, be very careful, because those wires, they're put in there, they are stiff, and taken apart to look at or do something, they can and will sometimes break. That does happen. But yeah, space is a necessity, and it has to be done pretty much on the money, or you're going to have to redo it.
Right. I'm sure that can be a real pain. Looking back through questions, Matt asked, do they have 17-inch coils? That guy loves big coils. He just loves the bigger the better. Matt, I don't think they have anything that big, but they do have some big coils, and then like Nell makes coils. I'm not sure.
I don't know of a 17-inch coil, and I don't know if D-Tech makes any for Tesoro or not. But yeah, Matthew, often you are correct. Getting housings made is money. Absolutely.
Getting housings made wouldn't be the money. The money would be in the mold.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
it's in the mold. That's where the money's at. Have you ever thought about reaching out to Tesoro about getting some of the bigger housings that they use for like the Teon?
I have not. I've never spoken to anybody there, but I guess that's always an option. And so we'll have to see what comes up. But yeah, a bigger housing, slightly bigger, would make a big difference. It really would. Just a little bit more room.
I'm sure. Yeah, I know everything's crammed in there pretty tight from what I hear. So
they are.
Yeah. So Bill said 3D printing. Yeah, that's a possibility. Man, that's getting cheap. 3D printing's really come down.
It has, and I had looked at before we moved here to Texas. some 3D printers, not to buy yet because I'm going to buy them. Excuse me. I'm going to sell a couple of my personal units because I'm going to buy some more equipment to work with. But yeah, 3D printers, man, they've come a long way, and it's amazing what you can do, even with a low-end model. Really is.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm reading in the chat as well because we're getting some questions coming in. Oh yeah, they do.
Problem.
D-Tech does make, because they make a big 15 by 12 because Greg's got one.
Yep.
Yeah, good deals.
D-Tech has got some really good coils. They've been around for a while, and D-Tech has got some. They've got some good coils.
Yep. And hey, real quick, I just got to say this. I'm sorry, I'm gonna sell myself here real quick. If anybody would be interested in Tesoro, we carry him at Digger's Den. You can get a hold of Brian. You can get a hold of us through the Facebook page, or you can call me, text me, whatever. You all should. I give out my number all the time, 937-414-4578. You watch, Matt will be calling me after the show. I've been trying to get that guy into Tesoros since I met him, and he's like, I don't like the looks of him. I don't like the look. You watch, he's going to buy at least one from me now. He'll be getting a hold of me for one.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll send you some pictures of, because I've actually got a Cibola that's mine, that I repainted the case, and I'll have some new decal. So I'll send that to you. Maybe the looks, if nothing else, maybe the looks just seem as sharp. I've got to have one.
Right. That'd be great. Yeah, him and I have, we all have our quirks about us. Hey, I do too. But I make fun of Matt because he's like, I buy stuff on aesthetics, and I said, get over it. They get the job done, man. Who cares what they look like? And he goes, I know. I just don't like how they look. So we've
that's it. Just like I was saying about a car, the aesthetics get it, and if people only knew what they were missing.
Right, exactly. You're exactly right. If they knew what they were missing. And he's up in Northeast Ohio around all them good fields, and I'm telling you, he needs a Tesoro. He'll be calling me later.
Hey, if anything else, I can put a handful of LEDs in it and we make them flash.
Yeah.
Really good.
There you go, Matt. He'll make it all blinged out.
Oh, God.
That is too funny.
I do have, and that'll be on the website as well, LEDs for battery level on the Tesoro. I don't know if a lot of people would have an interest in that, but it'll be either 3 or 4, probably 3 LEDs that, let's say if you put in a new battery, that when you turn it on, it's green, which means good. As you go through and it loses a little power, when it gets to a certain point, you turn it on, the LED will be yellow, which means it's, mid-life battery, and then when you turn it on and the LED turns red, that means it's telling you that it's time to change your battery.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's always nice.
Battery life makes a difference. So I think it's 3 LEDs that I'll be using. Like I said, I try to stay one thing at a time. But the LEDs are there, and I'll have that on the website as well.
That's awesome. Great. I love what you're doing. I do. And as big a fan of Tesoro as I am and all these great mods you're doing, hopefully we can revive Tesoro a little bit and get you some more work. I don't want him too busy, guys. Don't everybody contact him tomorrow. My Outlaw needs some work now. Don't
make sure your Outlaw's taken care of. Absolutely. And but depthdevil.com, and my email address, and I think that's on there as well, is at magnatechdetectors.com, but that's on there because I've gotten a few phone calls because my phone number is on there as well. But yeah, deathdevil.com. I'll have more information. And if you have any questions, because I answer a lot of emails, and I try to help everybody as much as I can with as much information. But that'll lighten the load with emails with the information. I'm going to have it's like a frequently asked questions section, and what can be done per model for the Tesoro, and I think that'll help people quite a bit.
Yeah, that is great that you're doing that. I already found your website to be very helpful and nice. I like it. It's a nice layout and easy to find. But I think I never even thought about it. But what you're talking about adding, I think, will really help people out.
I had wanted to do that sooner, but we moved here, and I learned a life lesson. We moved here in January, and my wife's aunt, who has 2 condos, had an empty condo and said, "You guys can live here, no problem." My wife already had a job when we moved here. She said everything will be peachy. But let me tell you, I'm 48, and it doesn't matter. The old saying that visiting with family is wonderful, but living with them never works, that stays true. And even though we weren't in the same home, it was a condo in the same building, doesn't work. That's why I didn't want to do that to begin with, but I relented because I love my wife, but I told her, I said, let's don't do that again.
I bet.
Tried to set for 4 months, tried to run everything off of a 4-foot table. Yeah, so it was her, and I'm a very neat person. I'm clean, but her was a little overbearing, and I had a 4-foot wide table and everything stacked about 10 feet high.
Man.
We moved and got here and got a room that I can actually put stuff, everything where I need it, and so much better. So that helps.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And you've been doing mods for a long time, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Quite a while. I've only had the website for a little over a year now. But I started for friends locally back in North Carolina. And, for a few people on some of the forums that I'm on, one person, tells somebody else. But, for quite a while.
Good. Well, hopefully we can get you some business going, and that would be great. Get you real busy.
Sure. Not too busy to do your outlaw, though.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I'll take care of you. That's not a problem, Mike. Yeah, we'll take care of you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, well, as soon as I get it back from Ohio, it's actually in Ohio, working on getting a straight shaft. I'm a fan of straight shafts, and my good friend's gonna hook me up with a couple straight shafts, and then I get it back. I got to send my coil back to Tesoro. We talked about that. I think my 8-inch coil's bad, but hopefully that's just sending the coil back, and I can send you with one of the other coils. So,
sure. And I've got a few coils here, so maybe the one I'll have will work. But we'll make sure you're taken care of, no problem.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll definitely be getting it out to you because I'm excited to get that done. That'll sure make it impressive.
Oh, and Charles Deschler, he put on there a minute ago, he said I didn't tell him that we could get the pretty blinky lights. Hey, we can do that, my friend. That's not a problem. Make them flash anything that you need.
Yep, that's great. That's a good idea. I hadn't even thought about that, but that's actually a really good idea to have because it's nice to know when your battery's getting low and where you're at with your battery. So.
Right, that's what George Payne, and I don't know, I'll give a plug for him. He's not in the industry anymore. I don't know how many people listening are aware of who George Payne is. He's 72. He lives in Salem, Oregon.
Okay.
He is responsible for everything, pretty much everything that we see on a metal detector. He started with White's Electronics in 1970. He is the innovator of ground balance, notch, discrimination. So pretty much everything that we have on a machine today goes back to George. They actually still use what's called some of the Payne circuits. George Payne is his name, Payne circuits.
Oh, wow.
To design detectors. He designs industrial metal detectors today. But yeah, George Payne, to get a chance, look him up. His name George C. Payne. He is remarkable. He was the one who he helped start Technetics back in 1980 with some other gentlemen who left White's.
Oh, neat.
Yes, but yeah, George Payne is. Without him, we would not be where we are today.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Do you talk to him?
I do. I don't here. I haven't here in the last several months, but we talk on the phone. Did before, like I say, we moved out here to Texas. We would talk on the phone and email. But I had written in Lost Treasure in 2010. There was a May issue, I believe. I co-wrote an article with George about his design, the Technetics Mark One. But yeah, George, he is, and you don't hear his name brought up a lot, especially the newer users or people that get into metal detecting. They're not aware, but George is, without him, we wouldn't be where we are. There's a lot of great talent as far as engineers. Like at First Texas, you have Carl Moreland and Dave Johnson, who are just awesome. But George Payne started everything, and we're lucky that he decided to go into metal detectors.
Frank, I'm going to ask you a favor.
Sure.
When the next time you talk to him, please ask him if he would reach out to me and if he'd be interested in doing a podcast episode. I certainly will. I would love to have him on. Absolutely.
If he would agree, now you are talking about people listening in, especially George is amazing, and he that would be a podcast you would not want to miss. Absolutely.
Right.
Because he is, like I say, a lot of people don't realize who he is, but without George, he designed the very first discriminating metal detector in 1975, the White's Supreme 5. And notch. The very first metal detector with notch was actually the Mark One. It was called Target Select at the time because they didn't know what to call it. I think Fisher coined the term notch. But yeah, George was an innovator, and without him, we would just be back several years from where we are now.
Right. That's amazing. I'll be honest. I'd never heard of him. I'd never heard of him until you, and that's. Yeah, I would absolutely love to have him on if he would be interested. Please have him reach out to me or, give him my number, whatever. If I don't know if he uses email or whatever, but any way he wants to.
Absolutely, I will. But yeah, his name is George C. Payne, Payne, and look that up, and you'll be. He's got a lot of older articles. He designed quite a few metal detectors, the Mark One, the Treasure Baron, which was the first modular detector. A lot of ideas, and really, really genius at what he does.
That is very cool. I'm taking notes as we speak. I want to get his name down because I am horrible with names.
Both of us.
Are you? Yeah, I'm bad. Okay, I'm done with that. I got it saved now, and I think we got everything answered for now. I'll tell you, I'd really like to have you on again. I'm like I said, I'm a huge Tesoro fan. I'd like to keep up with you and what's going on and what's new, and of course we'll also stay in touch and
absolutely.
But yeah, it was great having you on, Frank, and if anybody asks me any questions or anything, I'll forward it along to you. Or, you know, if you guys take a moment, please check out Frank's website. Start sending your Tesoros in. He's the guy. I always try to do a little research on each one of my guests, and Frank, I have not heard a bad thing about you. And
well, that's good, and I hope it stays that way. I try to do the right thing. Sometimes, you know, you get a little behind, but I always take care of the people that send those in. If there's a problem, everybody's taken care of. So yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I've only heard good and affordable and great to deal with, and mod work great. I've only heard good things, and that's, we always want people like that on the show and to bring you back, and we want to you know, get the word out there. If you got a Tesoro and you want mods, this is a guy. And I think all Tesoros could use some of your mods, as far as I'm concerned.
I'll do everyone that they can send in. That's not a problem.
All right, guys, pack up your Tesoros. Get a hold of Frank. Dirtdevil.com, correct?
Depth the devil.
I'm sorry.
Devil.
Yeah, when I said it, I knew that was wrong. Depthdevil.com.
Oh,
and yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Oh, there was a gentleman just posted if I knew how Tesoro feels about me doing the mods.
I just seen it.
I've not talked to anybody yet. Tesoro, you know, hopefully they're like, yeah, we've got a good machine, and maybe he does it, makes it a little better. But no, I haven't heard anything at all from Tesoro. I don't know if they probably really don't even know who I am. But no, have not heard anything from them.
That's surprising to me. Now, do you know if it's true? And maybe somebody in chat would know. Is it true that Nathan Yeager's no longer with Tesoro either? I heard he's gone.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I know that, like I say, Rusty Henry and also Alan Cannon, who was with the marketing, I believe. Alan Cannon years ago used to work for Compass.
Okay.
And but yeah, he's gone. So I had a gentleman who called. I talked to last week. He's going to send in a couple of his Tesoros. Now he said that he had called. He had a problem with one of his. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he said he had actually called in and talked to Vince. I believe it was Vince Gifford.
That's the owner.
The brothers who own it.
Yeah.
Yep. Two brothers, and he said that Vince, from talking to him, didn't seem like they wanted to do much. You know, I try not to put much emphasis or take that to heart, because, you know, we don't know what's going on. I mean, I hope that they come out with something this year, if not this year, next year. And yes, Paul Vento had an idea. He said Rusty would be a good guest. Rusty Henry, if you could ever get him, he was. People loved Rusty. He was an awesome guy.
Yeah, he was. I never talked to him, but boy, yeah, he is very well loved in Tesoro. Very much.
His shoes are going to be hard to fill.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, I agree with you so much that they need to come out with something new, but I also think they have some really good detectors, and it goes back to everybody wants bells and whistles and multi-frequency and VDIs and depth gauges and everything else. And don't get me wrong, I use those, and there's a time and a place. But
right.
You know, just the fact that you mod Tesoros does also speak volumes that they do need to do more. They need to offer more. But you know, like I said earlier, and I'm going to say it again. I know I repeat myself so many times. You take even the new Mojave. People love that and that switch, and when they're in tough ground, and I'm sure it would even be a lot better with your ground balance mod, and to be able to take $160. Which one is it? Shoot. Compadre, and take that out and relic hunt in that heavy iron. You show me another detector that'll get through that iron, like that, and you're not going to find it, and you're definitely not going to find it for that money.
No.
So
Tesoro they do a really good job. Period. And the one thing I would like to see from Tesoro, even though it wouldn't be a VDI or target identification, I'd like to see a dual frequency machine.
Yeah, I'm with you. But you're doing that.
So we'll see, with Tesoro. I hope they keep the ball bouncing and come out with something that really just knocks our socks off.
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I love what Tesoro's doing. I'd like to see them be relevant again. I don't know if they'll do it, but where I guess when I feel like I know we're getting late here. I feel like Whites is kind of, with their MX Sport and all that, they're kind of getting a little bit back in the game. I think they're still behind. Fisher and Technetics have been renaming the T2 and F75. They're great detectors, but people want to see something new out of them. Where the Tesoros are just, they're always going to be relevant, and they've always kind of been the same, and you can pick up a brand new one, or you can buy one that's 15 years old, and it's still going to do what it needs to do.
Right. And now Fisher will have a new one coming out. It's called the Manta. Now it's a pulse induction machine. And it was actually, because I talked to their engineering manager, Carl Moreland, before we moved, the gentleman who designed this Manta, the pulse induction, was a French physicist, and they ended up flying him over here, bought the rights to it, and he is under their contract working for them, but it's supposed to do, you can go to YouTube and look up Manta, and it will show, it's supposed to really be a good beach machine. I haven't really kept up with it because I'm not much into pulse machines. But hopefully they'll have, another multi-frequency machine come out. The pulse machines, I was told by a gentleman at First Texas, you have to watch with pulse and also multi-frequency machines, because MindLab has so many patents out, and MindLab has a lot of money, but yeah.
Well, I believe MindLab's owned by a big conglomerate, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe the company is called Codan, Codan, and they actually make a lot of stuff. Mainly, their money is made for military. But now, MindLab's chief engineer, Bruce Candy, he is one of the best engineers. But yeah, MindLab, they've done well. They really have.
Yeah, and I'd like to say I'm not against the American manufacturers.
No,
I am rooting for them, but at the same time, we've been hearing from Fisher for a couple years that, they got something big coming. I feel like White's is behind in the times. Garrett, I think they made a big mistake with the AT Max. I think it's a hopped up cross between an AT Pro and AT Gold. And it's not that I don't think that all of them make some good detectors, but you look what MindLab's doing, and you look at what Macro and Nocta are doing, and XP, and
yes,
I think I would love to see them step it up, but right now I don't think anything made here in the USA is real relevant. I don't. Am I wrong? Do you think I'm wrong?
No, that's what I was saying earlier. That those guys, from overseas, Belgium, and places. There are, and I don't remember the name. There's a gentleman who made a detector using a development board similar to the Arduino, but there are individuals over there who are making metal detectors. I mean, they're really, really good. And, you know, with the Nocta, if the manufacturers over here don't step it up, somebody from Russia or somewhere else is going to come out with something that's just going to knock your socks off, and that's what's going to be selling.
Absolutely. I right now, my personal opinion, I think Macro and Nocta are the most innovative and just kicking butt. I did an article not too long ago, my top 3 favorite detectors, and multi-cruiser, I think it's very versatile detector, and it's a great detector, good depth. That was number 1. Number 2 is the Rudis Alder 71, which is out of Poland. That is an amazing detector. I love that thing. And then the E-Track. I know it's older, and you know there's some debate whether the E-Track or CTX, but I think the E-Track ID's a little bit better, you know, with tone. And those are my top 3, and not one American. And that's not how I want it to be. You know, it's not that.
Right.
But we'll see what happens. I think we'll see some good things down the road.
So, yeah, the E-Track and the Explorer series, those have pretty much been the best deep silver machines on the market. They've done well. And Nexus, you don't hear a lot about the Nexus here, but they have, if you ever get a chance, the Nexus uses a really weird-looking coil. It's like a figure 8. But it gets much better depth. But yeah, Nexus and Rudis, they've got some really awesome machines coming from overseas. They really do, and those guys, they know their stuff. They really do.
Yeah, they do, and they're doing great. The Rudis, the Macro, the Nocta. That Rudis is a hot detector. Very good detector. I had a customer with issues with the multi-cruiser, and I'm not big into test beds, air testing, none of that. But I do have 3 dimes buried at 6, 8, and 10 inches, and that Rudis will nail all 3 of them, no problem. And that factory and just that pictograph, I like that. It definitely gives you a little more to go on, and steady numbers, and lightning fast, and so good things. I know we're way late and off the subject, so let's call it a night. We'll call it a night.
Sounds good, my friend.
Thank you, Frank, so much, and we will have you back if you'll come back on. I know we had a lot of issues tonight,
sure.
But hopefully we can have a much smoother show next time.
No problem. I enjoyed it. I really did. And anytime you want me back to yap, you just let me know.
Absolutely. Yeah, it'll happen. I promise. I can't wait to have you back. Let's give it a little bit of time, a month or so, and we'll get you back on soon.
Sure, not a problem. Like I say, I really appreciate you having me on, and all the questions I got. Hopefully, I was able to answer some of those for some folks. But yeah, I'll have that up on the information up on the website as soon as I can.
Let me know when you do, and I'll make sure to announce it on the show and stuff as well.
I'll do it.
All right. Thank you, Frank. It was great having you on.
Absolutely, Mike. I enjoyed it, and you and the rest of the guests, I hope everybody has a good evening.
Thanks, Frank. Good night.
Night.
Well, there you go. It was, he was great. He's a great guy. I got a chance to talk to him a little bit before we did the show over the last couple of weeks, and he knows his stuff. Good stuff. If you got a Tesoro and you want it mods added to make it a much better detector, send it to Frank. Get a hold of him. Again, it's depthdevil.com. go check out his website. He's got a great website. I can't wait to see what he's got coming on the website. The things he added, talking about adding, will be great. So, good night, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.
The All Metal Mode podcast is sponsored by Digger's Den. If you are looking for a metal detector, get in touch with Mike or Brian. Together, they have years of experience with many different brands and models. They also truly enjoy what they do. You can contact them through Facebook at Digger's Den, visit the website at dddetectors.com, or give Mike a call. He makes it sound like it's so hard raising our boy, but trust me, he has time. 937-414-4578.